Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look and installing the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2021 Chrysler Pacifica. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed, and it is an exposed cross tube, meaning you're going to see a good majority of the hitch hanging down below the rear fascia, but overall it's tucked back far enough and it's got a nice matte black powder coat finish, so it looks pretty stealthy under there and it doesn't really detract away from the looks of the van. Now this one is a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is a great option for a ton of different accessories, whether it be ball mounts, bike racks, or cargo carriers. You will have a huge selection. Now, all of those will stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. This is not included with the hitch. A lot of times your accessories will have one included. If you wanted to get a locking version, we have those available here at eTrailer, which is really nice. If you plan on leaving your accessories in place, you can lock that up and know that no one's going to walk away with your accessories. We have a plate style safety chain loop here, so if you plan on towing a trailer, your standard S-hooks go on there nice and easy. Even a larger clevis style hook will go on there as well. Now speaking of towing, it does have some pretty good weight capacities for this vehicle. The gross trailer weight rating out the gate is going to be 4,000 pounds, which is going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. You also have a tongue weight rating of 400 pounds, and that's the downward pressure that's put on the inside of the receiver tube opening. So that's going to be mostly your suspended accessories like your cargo carriers or bike racks. And with 400 pounds, you're going to be able to load up a bike rack pretty full, a 4-bike, or a cargo carrier with a bunch of stuff for vacation. Just make sure you stay under that weight limit. Now this can be used with a weight distribution hitch if you plan on pulling a little bit heavier of a load, and that's going to bump up that gross trailer weight rating of 5,000 pounds. Your tongue weight will also go up to 500 pounds. But no matter what, if you're planning on towing a trailer, you want to check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing, compare it with the hitch, as well as all the accessories you'll be using to hook up to that trailer, and take the lowest of those numbers just to stay safe. A few quick measurements from the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point of the rear fascia. We're looking right at about 5 inches, and that's going to be important for choosing accessories that stow in a folded up position. Some cargo carriers and bike racks will do that, and you want to make sure it doesn't make contact with your fascia in the process. Now keep in mind, as those fold up, more than likely you're probably not going to be able to open up your hatch unless you drop those down, but not a big deal. As far as ground clearance goes, this one's pretty solid at 13 inches, and that's mostly important for choosing a ball mount because you can determine the rise or drop necessary. You just measure the coupler and then measure it against that 13 inches and you'll get your rise or drop. Now, something else to think about while having accessories that are suspended, cargo carriers or bike racks, as you go up an incline, those will want to tilt towards the ground. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're going up a steep incline or if you're on any rocky or rough terrain. Now, as far as installation goes, this isn't terribly hard to do. There's a lot of little steps that kind of go along with it. The underbody panel comes down, and Chrysler really did a great job of making sure there's plenty of hardware to take off to remove that. You're also going to be lowering down your exhaust by removing the isolators, which isn't terribly hard to do, but that's going to allow you to pull off the heat shield, which will also need to be trimmed, as well as that underbody panel for it to all go back together. But the actual hitch install isn't too bad, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps. So let's take a look at that and get your hitch installed. To begin our installation, we're going to need to remove our lower underbody panel. Now this will go back up eventually with some trimming, but this pretty much blocks the entire area where the hitch is going to go. So we need to get this down. We'll start with our 8mm socket, and then we'll remove these screws that we have here. Now once you get the ones along this bottom fascia removed, there's also 2 more on the driver's side that attach the panel here. So go ahead, get these removed. Now there's going to be quite a bit of hardware that we need to take off to get some of these panels taken off. So I recommend having a nice organized spot. That way reinstallation goes that much easier. Now we'll need a 10mm socket, and there's going to be these plastic nuts that we're going to remove. Put your socket on and we'll get these removed. Now there's going to be 2 of them that are kind of tucked underneath this panel here where it kind of overlaps. So you might want to take these 2 out to gain access to those. Now when removing these, there should be a total of 7 of them, so make sure that you have them all. You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are located right behind the driver's side rear tire, so just get these two removed. Now you're going to want to grab either a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver, and there's going to be these plastic nuts. They have a square or a Phillips head style. We'll go ahead and get these removed. Now you're going to want a pretty large screwdriver to be able to get these. Now, sometimes you're going to want to put a little downward pressure on here because those plastic threads kind of just go back onto the stud. So just kind of pull this down as you're loosening it. We'll have the one here. There's also one that's kind of on the other side tucked back. So we'll get these removed and we should be able to get our underbody panel off. Now there's another 8mm screw that we need to take out that's located on this side, so go ahead and get that removed. With all of our fasteners removed, we can take our underbody panel and we're going to set this aside. Now we do need to lower down our exhaust, and that's going to give us access to get the heat shield out and also get the hitch up. So to get this removed, you're going to have rubber isolators that go onto the exhaust hanger. We have one here. We also have one that's kind of close to the subframe. Now to get these pried off, to make it a little bit easier, soapy water generally helps kind of lubricate this and make it easy to pry off. And a long flathead screwdriver or pry bar works really well here. So we'll just kind of wedge this against the exhaust tip and then just pry back on it until we get this removed. Now just be careful when you get close to that second isolator coming off. It may drop down a little bit. You have another isolator up there, so it's going to hold the exhaust up, but this does drop down just a little bit. We're going to need to remove this heat shield and trim it because our access holes to bolt up our hitch are going to be located right where the heat shield is. So it's two 10mm plastic nuts. So we have this one first. There's also one that's tucked pretty far back, kind of where the exhaust bends by the cross member. So we'll get that one removed as well. We do need to trim out our heat shield, and I just use painter's tape to keep a nice clean line here. Now you can refer to the instruction manual. They're pretty aggressive as far as going high up, but I really think for structural sake, we're better to kind of keep it a little bit lower. The main thing is we're just opening this area up where the frame rail is to where we'll be putting our hardware in. So to cut this, I'm using a pair of aviation shears. That works pretty well. Whatever you have handy that can kind of cut through this metal. If you have a Dremel or an angle grinder, it's all going to work pretty well the same. Just be careful, these edges can get pretty sharp once you cut them. Now we're going to be losing a mounting point for the plastic nut where we trimmed out, but we'll still have this back one. Eventually that underbody panel will go back on here to hold it up as well. So we'll go ahead, we'll slide this back up. And we'll get this one put back in. Now, when raising your hitch up, you're going to want an extra set of hands. This is a pretty bulky hitch, and it can get pretty heavy. You're also going to want at least one serrated flange nut on each side. That way, when we raise it up, we can get one started, and it'll support the hitch up. So we're going to take our fish wires and feed them through the corresponding holes in the hitch. And we're going to want to feed this up over the muffler first. So we'll just kind of slide this into place while pulling our fish wires to get that slack taken out. Raise this up. When you get one of them kind of lined up, just pull that through. And at this point, you want to make sure you don't push the hardware back up. So just kind of use the hitch to press against it, and that should kind of hold it. I'll get a nut hand tightened on here. And once we do that on both sides, it's going to hold the hitch up, allowing us to get the rest of the hardware in a lot easier. Now on this side, that stud is going to feed through the small hole. Ours wasn't aligned very well, so I ended up having to kind of knock that over to the side to get this to lift into place. So I might recommend mocking up your hitch first, and if you need to, I just took a screwdriver and kind of tapped it on the side with a hammer to kind of get that bent over enough. And then from here, we'll get this one started, and with one on each side, we'll go ahead and get the rest of our flange nuts in place. Now, once you get all your hardware started by hand, you're going to want to go ahead and snug these down with a 3/4 inch socket. You don't need to get too crazy here. Just draw the hitch up to where it sits against the frame. And we'll be coming back with a torque wrench, so just enough to get this tightened down. On this side, you may need to use a swivel to get a nice shot on this hardware. Now once you have those snug down, we'll come back with our torque wrench, and the torque settings are found in the instruction manual, and with the torque settings recommended, I would get a 1/2 inch torque wrench to get that torque setting. And if you need a torque wrench, we have them here available at eTrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. And this is going to be important. It's going to make sure that it's going to be tight enough for the lifespan of the hitch, for obviously to stay in place without getting loose, but also not too tight, putting stress on that hardware. I'll go through and torque down all the hardware. At this point, we have our hitch nice and torqued down, ready to go, but we do need to get that ground wire back in place if you have yours. Since we didn't have ours, we can move along, but if you do have yours, you'll use the new hardware to get that in place. Now with all your hardware torqued down, your hitch is officially installed, but we need to trim our underbody panel to make sure that it fits back in place. The instruction manuals do lay it out of where you need to cut. I generally like to hold it up and mock it up with what we have installed so we get a nice clean fit. So just kind of align the rear studs on the back, just kind of make sure it's centered up. And then from here, you can kind of look at the side wings of the hitch and you can feel it right where it's at. So if you want, you can actually cut along here to make that slit, because this will slide through here. So we need to cut this portion all the way up to that. Now when cutting this, it's roughly about 1/2 inch, and it's a 10-inch run, give or take. It really is just right on the outside of this hole towards the outside. And this is just kind of a thick fiber kind of pressed material, so snips works really well on here. You could probably get away using even a decent pair of scissors, but we'll go ahead, we'll get this cut out. So with our underbody panel put back up, go ahead and make sure you get your exhaust hangers put back on, and you've officially installed your hitch. All that's left to do, load up your accessories and hit the road. And that was a look and installation of the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2021 Chrysler Pacifica.